So I'm taking this lesson outside at night. You guys can see my cat. He's curious what I'm doing out here. But I wanted to take a look at the moon. And unfortunately, it's just showing up as a big bright spot. But the left side of it actually is not complete. It's not a complete circle. I'm going to take this back inside now. Welcome to Science at Home. So I started this video outside because I wanted to look at the moon. I don't know if you guys have noticed it, but the moon looks different about every third night that you go and look at it. Maybe not every night, but if you start to look at it and go out again, maybe 3 days from now, then a week from now, it starts to look different. Now, is the moon itself changing? No. The moon is the same, but how it appears to us is changing. So let's start with our I can statements. By the end of today's lesson, I feel you can do this. You can explain 2 reasons the moon looks different each night. And I believe you can also match the image and name of 5 moon phases. That's a new word, phases, and we'll go over that. Okay, so what you're going to need for today, you need your journal, you need a pencil. So I'm going to share with you a PowerPoint, okay? But I want you to start with the heading at the top of your paper, and I will show it to you, and a question. Now, it will be on the first slide. Moon phases, that's going to be our title, but then there's an opening question. Why does the moon look different each night? It's a great question. And I would love it if you took a moment right now, you paused the video, and you wrote down your thoughts. I think that'd be a great challenge. We definitely do that in class, where we start with, what are your thoughts? What are your ideas? It's not about being right or wrong. You're just sharing your ideas. So please take a moment, pause the video, and answer that question. Why does the moon look different each night? Okay, hopefully you guys challenged yourself, but I'm going to admit something to you. When I was a kid, I didn't know why. I thought I knew. Okay, so one thing I did know is that the moon doesn't make its own light. Okay, I'm going to have this golf ball be the moon. And the moon doesn't emit its own light. It reflects it from the sun. Now, that I knew. But I always thought the strange shapes that we saw was because Earth somehow got in the way of the sun's light shining on the moon. And do you see what you see right now is a different shape of the moon? You don't see the full moon. And I thought when you don't see it at all, it's because Earth blocked the whole thing, casting a big shadow on the moon. And then look, we see a different amount of it over here. Okay, that's what I thought. That's not correct, though. But that's part of why I wanted you guys to write down your ideas. Is Earth casting a shadow on the moon? Turns out it is not. It is not. But that's what I thought as a kid. And that's okay. And that would be an idea that I would write down. But now we're going to learn a little something new. Okay? So follow along in the presentation. And we're going to draw several phases, so you will need both pages. Both pages. We're going to draw some phases of the moon as we draw it in our notebook. Okay? So hopefully you already have the heading on your paper, moon phases, and that question, and you paused the video and challenged yourself. Okay, so why does the moon look different each night? So now let's answer that, because it's not because Earth casts a shadow on the moon. So half of the moon is always lit by the sun. I mean, just like Earth. One side of Earth is having day, the other side's having night. Same thing's happening with the moon. But what I would like you to copy in your notebook are the next two sentences. Okay? The reason that the moon appears different each night is because the moon does not emit its own light. It reflects the sun's light. So could you please write those two sentences in your notebook? Again, don't worry about the first sentence, but could you please copy the next two? The moon does not emit its own light. That means give off its own light like the sun does. It reflects the sun's light. Now again, if I'm going too fast, you can always hit pause. Okay. The other reason the moon appears different is because the moon revolves around Earth. So the revolution of the moon around Earth makes the moon look as if it is changing shape in the sky, but the moon itself is not changing shape. So again, could you please copy this sentence in your notebook? Okay. So this model actually is really cool in a different PowerPoint format, but in Google Slides, it doesn't move, it doesn't show motion. But right here, if you just look at these inner shapes, they all look the same. Okay, they all look the same. And that's because only one side of the moon is facing the sun, and that's what will be glowing. That's what will be lit up, and the other side is dark. But when you're standing on Earth and you look out at it, this is how it appears, what you see on that outer circle. And we're going to write down the names of all of these. We're going to write down the names. So we're going to start with the first one being new moon. And this is why you need both of your pages. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the sun right underneath our writing on this side, so that when we label all the phases over here, we know it's all because the sun's rays were coming from this side. So all I did was write sun and put a whole bunch of sun rays. And now I'm going to work on the other side of my notebook. So I'm going to have Earth in the middle. And this first one that we're referencing is called New Moon. It's completely darkened in, completely darkened in. Again, I will hold up my notebook to show you guys how we're doing this. So again, I'll open up both pages, but from now on, I'll just show the one. Okay. So I just have this open so you can see my notes. I wrote sun, I have the arrows, but now let's focus on just this page. So we're saying that the sun's rays are coming from this direction. So we have new moon. Okay, Earth's in the middle. Okay. After the new moon, the next phase, well, I forgot to mention. So there are 8 phases that we're going to reference and label. There are 8 phases. So what you can do ahead of time is we're going to draw in those 8 circles. We're not going to color them in just yet. We're just going to draw them. So the easiest thing to do is draw 4 of them. Okay, so I had the new moon, and then I drew one right at the top, all the way over on this side, and one at the bottom. Then I'm going to put one in between each of those. I sometimes find that's the easiest way to do it. Okay, So now I've added all of these in between. So we've got 8. And we're going to start to label them. Now the other thing we need to know is the order. We go counterclockwise. That means I go from here to there, and then there. And that's how we go around. So I'm going to draw an arrow from the new moon, and I'm going to point up to the next one. Up to the next one. Hoping I'm getting that on there for you guys to see. Okay, so right now I'm just going to share all the names, and then we're going to slow down and we're going to look at the images too so we can draw it accurately on here. So new moon, waxing crescent. So crescent, those are the ones that look kind of like a banana, really thin shaped. Waxing just means that it's getting larger. That's what waxing means. It means to be growing or getting larger. First quarter, waxing gibbous. Gibbous is when you can see more than that quarter of the moon, okay? But you're not quite full. Full moon, we all seem to know about this. Super bright, complete circle, and then it starts to shrink again. So waning means to be getting smaller. Okay, third quarter, sometimes referred to as last quarter, waning crescent, and then you're back to the new moon again. So it is one big cycle. So now let's look at the pictures. So new moon, sometimes, but very unlikely that you can actually see it. Okay, it's usually just a dark sky, very dark out. Okay, after that we have the waxing crescent. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to draw that so that you guys can draw that too. So I drew the curve first, and then I shaded in part of it, but try to make sure you're doing it on the proper side. And of course you have to label. Waxing crescent. Okay, so I'll share it again, and I've also added another arrow. Okay, so I went to waxing crescent. Now I'm going up to this top one. And that top one is called the first quarter. First quarter. Again, keep track as to which side of the moon you're shading in. So sometimes the first quarter is mistakenly called a half moon because, well, that's what you see. You see half a moon. But in truth, if you think about it, you don't see the back half of the moon. You're only seeing a quarter of the moon. Okay. The next one. Now this, if anything, you can kind of think of it as a crescent again, but the dark part is the crescent. You can see just a little bit of curve on the side there that's dark. Anyway, this is now called the waxing gibbous. In truth, I would just be impressed if you knew the difference between gibbous and crescent. Whether it's a waning or waxing, that's something to know when you're older. But we are taking our notes, and you can use your notes when I ask you questions. Okay. But again, I'm not expecting you to know the difference between waning and waxing at the moment. Oh, I just shared another word with you, waning. Okay. Well, almost all the darkness is off, and we finally, oops, wrong button. And we now have the full moon. So the lighted side of the moon faces Earth. Okay, Earth is actually between the sun and the moon, but yet we can completely see the moon. So Earth is not blocking it. When it does, we have something called an eclipse, and that'll be something we'll talk about in another lesson. But there you are, full moon. Okay, that's because of where we are. We've got the sun behind us, and we can see that moon. And now it starts going away. We have to wave goodbye to it. So now you'll notice that the opposite side, the right-hand side of it, is getting darker. Oh, and by the way, this is also what we see in the northern hemisphere. It would appear different to those who live in the southern hemisphere. This is what we see in the northern hemisphere. Okay. Third quarter, also sometimes referred to as the last quarter. Again, keep track as to which side you are shading in. You should only be shading in the right side. Find it easier to make the curve shape like the banana and then shade in the rest of it. Dark. Waning crescent. There we go. I'll hold it up much larger too instead of it being in a small screen. And then we are back to the new moon again. So all I did was draw an arrow connecting it back to the new moon. Yep, back to the new moon again. Okay, so those are the 8 moon phases. Those are the 8 moon phases. Okay, and we just filled in our notebook and we explained 2 reasons. Okay, so I'm going to share this link with you. It's hard to see it on there. Maybe I can move my picture up. Oh, I can. Look at that. So I will share that game. It's not required for you to do it. I'm also going to share a Newsela article. Actually, I'm going to go to that right now, the Newsela article. Okay, so the reason I like this Newsela article is this picture. That is so cool. I think it, okay, at least I think it's cool. Anyway, I'm going to move myself over here. Okay, because I want to go down in this article. What I like about the article, besides what's written on it, is just the images that it shows. So I was just talking to you about how one side of the moon is always facing the sun, is lit up, and the other side is dark. But this is so hard for you to understand that concept and see this here. That's why I like the next image in the article. This one. And it has all the names right there with the images. So again, you can reference this article if you want to double check your drawings, what you drew. This is a great article just to look through. It's a very short article too. And you can change the reading level. That's what we can do in Newsela. You can always change the reading level. And this article is also available in Spanish. So again, you guys can choose. And then you can also choose the reading level. Okay, so this slide doesn't show up in Google Slides like this. It doesn't have the animation. So I had to pull it back up in a PowerPoint. And what's really good is, again, you see the inner, representation is the moon, and only half of it's lit. But what we actually see from Earth, that's what they're showing along the outer. And they're doing it with the names of each. So I thought this was just another good representation. Okay, so I wanted to share an up-close image of our notebook. Okay, so hopefully your notebook looks just like that. Let's look back at the I can statements. Did we cover it all? So I think you can do this now. You can explain 2 reasons the moon looks different each night. We had gone over 2 reasons in our notes. I can match the image and name of 5 moon phases. So when we talk about all these changes and what they look like, we call those phases of the moon. Okay, so we went over 8. And I'm going to ask you in Google Form, I'm going to share an image and I will give you 5 choices and you've got to decide which one it is, matching the name with the image. Okay, so you're expected to complete a Google Form, which will have a couple of questions plus those 5 images. All right, now, if you want to continue watching the video, I'm going to show you how to kind of model this at home. You either had to make the model yourself, but then you'll also see me model it as well. Now for this part of the activity, I had to find a ball. I found a wiffle ball. The reason I liked it is because then it already has holes in it that I could use. Otherwise, if you have a styrofoam ball, there's actually a Newsela article that talks about doing this with an orange. But again, this also helped for me to do this at nighttime because then I didn't have any light coming in through the windows when I did this model. So what I did with my wiffle ball, you can see, I colored half of it black to represent the part that the sun is not shining on. So half remained white, a little bit dirty. The other half is dark, what the sun doesn't shine on. And I used my pen. I tried to find one that would get stuck in there. So I could even turn it upside down if I wanted to. I then got a light, took the shade off of it so it could really shine like the sun. This side always faces the sun. Okay? I would always have this side facing the sun. And this side always faces away from the sun. But then what I did, like for example, if the sun was over there, I moved my body to look at this as it went around me. So it helps if I'm not sitting in a seat like this, but one that can spin, okay? And you end up seeing how it looks different. Now, of course, you're not getting that effect here, so I created a different video of this. Maybe you can make the model at home as well. So the white part of our moon model, I'm going to turn it now to show you. The white part should always be facing the sun, which will be our lamp. So we are going to start turning. Watch what happens. Now as we face our sun, we have what's called the new moon. Okay, we can't see it. Now, it doesn't always block the sun. That would be an eclipse, and we'll get into that next lesson. So I'm going to raise it up a little higher. So we still see the sun, but we can't see the moon. It's going to be black against the sky, and that will be our new moon. But I still keep the white part facing the sun. And as I rotate, as Earth rotates, we start to see another phase of the moon. That's now our full moon. Okay, so some people will sometimes refer to this as a half moon. But we'll get into the actual terms of each one, and I'll continue on to new moon again.